That morning I was tending the roses in me garden, unaware of what life had in store for me. My hands were buried in topsoil, checking the roots of the saplings. Had just planted. Everything was normal and quiet, just like any other day, until a sharp pain shot through my back. I had no idea what was about to happen, especially as my step-nephew Taylor happened to be there. My garden had always been my sanctuary, my escape after me husband Grant died. It became the one place that truly healed my soul. But on this day, everything felt different. I was 67. But people often said, "Nora, how do you manage to look so youthful at your age?" Honestly, there was no big secret. I just took care of myself, a healthy diet, regular exercise, and a determination to never lose the young woman inside me. Beautiful. Admit loneliness had sunk deep into me soul. My beauty might still attract attention, but inside there was an emptiness I couldn't shake. As I positioned one of the saplings, a sudden pain shot through my back. It was so sharp and unexpected that I dropped everything I was holding. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to breathe through the pain, but it didn't help. The pain spread from my shoulder down my back, freezing me in place, unable to move. Then out of nowhere, I heard Taylor's voice in "Are ya okay?" My step-nephew Taylor, 22 years old, broad shoulders, muscular build, and thickened of face you'd see on a magazine cover. His blonde hair shimmered in the sunlight, and his piercing eyes looked at him with concern. He had that natural calm, the kind that caught everyone's attention, even if he didn't seem to realize it himself. And now all that youthful energy seemed to be focused on helping me. My back, I managed to say, pointing to the spot where the pain was sought. "It's worse. Something's wrong. I can't move. Are you ready for this? Because this isn't just another story. This is a journey where boundaries blur, emotions dangle, and confessions linger, like silent screams. Every moment could stir something inside you, pushing the boundaries of what you thought you knew." If this sounds like your kind of story, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to support me. Taylor crouched down beside me. "Let me help you," he said. I felt an involuntary shiver run through me as his big hand touched my shoulders. "I'll give you a massage. It usually helps," he added. I didn't have the strength to protest. I was ready to try anything to ease the pain. But what really surprised me, waist effect his touch had on them. Taylor put his hands on my back and began to press gently. I had to admit, I hadn't felt this kind of closeness in years. His fingers were strong, but surprisingly gentle, as they moved over me tense muscles. The pain slowly faded, replaced by a strange warmth that spread through me. It was as if the lonely woman inside me had suddenly been awakened. Out of breath, maybe a little too deep. "Taylor," I started to say, but the words got stuck in my throat. He couldn't finish. He didn't say anything either, just kept massaging. His hand slid down my back in a way that made me hyper-aware of every touch at that moment. I felt something shift, and it frightened and excited me in ways I wasn't prepared for. Taylor continued to work his hands down my back, steady and deliberate, until suddenly stopped and leaned closer to look at them. "Nora, this is really bad," he said, his voice serious and worried. "We can't fix it out here in the garden. Let's get you inside near the fire. The heat will help, and I'll get some ointment to rub on your back. We've got to take care of this." I hesitated for a second, but the pain made the decision for me. I nodded, and he helped me to my feet. "Careful, take it slow," he said, his strong hands supporting me. There was something strangely comforting about the way a close class I hadn't felt in years. When we got inside, the crackling fire filled the room with a warm golden glow. The heat wrapped itself around me like a blanket, instantly relieving the tension in my body. Taylor quickly spread a blanket on the floor and motioned for me to lie down. "You need to stretch your back into a more comfortable position," he said, high-sized serious, but with a flicker of hesitation. "I've got some cream. It'll help loosen the muscles." I lay down and felt the warmth of the fire seep into me as Taylor rubbed the cream between his hands. To warm it, the first touch of his hand on me shoulders made me let out a breath. I didn't even realize I was holding. "Just relax," he said quietly. "You'll feel better in no time." But every touch of his hands did more than ease my physical pain. It stirred something inside me, something I thought I'd buried long ago. As his fingers moved down my back, me thoughts became both clearer and more chaotic. Taylor's touch wasn't just healing, it was awakening. I hesitated for a moment, but the pain was too much, so I quickly accepted. Taylor took my arm gently and helped me to my feet. "Take it slow. Be careful," he said, as his strong hands wrapped around me almost completely. I felt a strange sense of security. This young man's protectiveness gave me a closeness I hadn't felt in years. As we entered the house, the flames in the fireplace painted the room in a warm orange glow. The crackle of the fire and the heat that filled the room instantly relaxed me. Taylor quickly spread a blanket on the floor and motioned for me to lie down. You need to relax your back into a more comfortably position, he said, his eyes still serious but flickering with something's softer. I also brought some cream. This will soften the muscles. I lay down, feeling the warmth envelop my body, and Taylor squeezed the cream into his hand, rubbing it between his palms to warm it. First touch of his hands on Miss Holder made me gasp. Relax, he said quietly. You'll feel better now. But with each touch, I could feel something chunging. His hands weren't just giving him physical relief, they were stirring up emotions I'd buried for years. As his fingers moved down my back, my thoughts were soothed but also confused. Taylor's touch was slow but sure, going deeper both physically and emotionally. No wonder your muscles are so tense, he said, his voice carrying a warmth that caught my attention. You taken too much, Nora. The garden they housework. You need to think of yourself. I tried to explain. The garden is Mithra. Without it, I know, interrupted his touch, softening a little. But you need more than the garden. You need someone, a person, someone to care for you. His words warmed me even more than fire, but they also made me uneasy. I didn't fully understand what he meant or Mave. I did, but I didn't want to accept it at that moment. His hands moved down my back, continuing the massage. The warmth of his touch loosened it, tight spots thought, but inside it created another kind of knot. Being so close to him felt both comforting and terrifying. Taylor, I finally said, my voice trembling, you're really helping. But I know, he said, his voice slower, thisting, but everything's going to be fine. Just relax, Nora. I could feel that his words were more than just advice, like cough. Flames of the fire, his presence, grew closer. With each passing second, Taylor slid gently down my back. As each muscle loosened at his touch, a strange sense of unease began to take hold of me. His warmth moved deeper, slowly but determinedly. It was then that my mind began to cloud and an inner struggle was born. Nora, stay calm, told myself, but I couldn't control myself. As his warm hands moved lower, closer to my shoulder, me heart began to pound. On the one hand it was Taylor's closeness, on the other, boundaries that years had put in place. Suddenly, the voice inside messed loudly, he's your step-nephew, Nora. You shouldn't do this. The fire had filled the room with a warm light. For a while the heat became unbearable. I saw Taylor wiping the sweat from his brow. My eyes couldn't help but wander over to him. Suddenly, he pulled up the bottom of his shirt and lifted it off. His muscular, sun-kissed body glowed in the fur light, almost like a sculpture. Writes, hard to describe what I felt at that moment. I hadn't felt this close to Onion in years. This heat from the fire is too much, he said, dropping his shirt to the ground. His tone was casual, but the depth in his gaze made me freeze. Then his eyes met mine. Nori, you're getting really hot too, he said, his voice soft but firm. You'll feel worse if you keep that shirt on. Let me help you. My words caught in my throat. I thought about fighting back, but threw a myth on my skin, and the temperature of the room had become unbearable. Slowly, nodded. Taylor knelt beside me and reached for the hem of my shirt. I felt his warm hands against my skin. The touch made me shiver, but it wasn't cold, it was a kind of heat. He carefully pulled my set up, working it gently around my hair, and finally took it off and set it aside. At that moment the air between us became thicker. His eyes lingered on me for a second before he quickly turned his head away. Still, I didn't need to see his face to know the chaos those looks caused in Sadim. Nora, Taylor said, his voice deeper and softer than before. Do you feel better now? I think so, I replied, my words couldn't hide the storm inside me. It wasn't just the heat, it was the warmth from Taylor's presence that enveloped me. Come on, he said, holding out his hand. Let's sit on that couch. You're uncomfortable here. I took his hand. The moment our fingers touched, he felt an electricity I hadn't felt in years. As he helped me to my feet, his strong arms held me steady for a moment. Taylor's protective nature felt so clear, so natural, that the fears inside me began to melt away. When we reached the couch, he sat me down gently. He sat next to me immediately, but made sure there was enough space between us. Still, the tension in the room hadn't gone away. There was something unspoken between us, but it was so hard, maybe impossible to put into words. Trying not to get lost in the depth of his gaze, I fought to suppress the turmoil inside me, but one thing was clear tonight. It was almost impossible to deny the weight of our feelings. After we sat down, the silence after was deepened by the crackling of the fire. My heart was beating so fast in my chest that I could almost hear Itala sitting next to me. His presence, his breath affected me. Being so close to him made me feel both nervous and strangely at peace. I turned my head for a moment, and our eyes met. There was a nothing in his gaze, perhaps curiosity, perhaps something deeper in this closeness. It was impossible to ignorate look in his eyes, deep, intense, but also gentle. In that moment it felt as if the world had stopped. Taylor slowly reached out his hand for mine when his fingers touched mine. A shiver ran through me. He didn't say anything, but there was so much in the silence. His gaze lingered on my lips for a second, and in that moment every change. He leaned slowly towards me. He was so close, his breath left a warmth on me skin. The voices inside me stopped. But there was no more right or wrong at that moment. There was only Taylor eyes on this closeness to me. I closed my eyes and leaned in just a little toward him. When our lips met it felt like time had stopped. The first touch was gentle, soft and exploratory, but within seconds that gentleness turned into something more intense. His warmth, his breath, the feel of his lips, everything seemed detached from reality. The loneliness, fear and longing that had built up inside me were somehow merging with him in that moment. This wasn't just a kiss. It was the expression of years of bottled up emotions, suppressed desires and maybe even a hidden bond. As the kiss deepened, his hands gently roamed over my cheeks. My hands instinctively gripped his shoulders, the warmth of his skin radiating through my palms. Finally, we both pulled away at the same time. When our eyes met, our breaths were uneven, but the bond between us felt stronger than ever. Was there anything to say? I wasn't sure, but one thing was clear tonight: nothing between us would ever be the same after the kiss. I realized I was breathless. My heart was pounding like it was about to burst out of my chest. When I looked into Taylor's eyes, I saw both a question and a deep desire. In that moment, my mind went completely quiet. My heart and body were at once making the decisions now. I said, my voice shaky, but my feelings clear. Yes, I want you. I want you. Words left my lips, and something inside me snapped. The loneliness and fears I carried for years seemed to melt away in an instant. All that mattered was being here, right here with him in this moment. Taylor's face showed a brief flash of surprise, but then a slow smile spread across his face. The expression in his eyes mirrored the warmth that surrounded me. I want you too, Nora asked, his voice both soft and firm. I've tried to hold back, but I can't anymore. I want to be with you. His words rippled through me like waves, each word touching my heart. Taylor gently cued my face in his hands and moved closer to me again. This time, there was no hesitation. We both knew what we wanted when his lips met mine. Again, the intensity of our feelings was beyond words. That moment was a turning point for me. Taylor's presence, his words, despite all my fears. I didn't want to stop anything now. I hadn't stopped anything. I had completely let myself go with the flow of my emotions. Now, with nothing but a thin sheet over us, breathless and intertwined, Taylor lay next to me with a small smile in his face. I looked up at the ceiling and saw our shirts and trousers scattered on the floor. The night felt so surreal, like a dream. Taylor turned to face me, that captivating smile still in his face. His hand gently touched my ski, his thumb briefly brushing my lips. Nora, he said, his voice deep and soft. I wouldn't trade this moment for anything. I turned to him, filled with the mixed emotions that still ran through me, and said in a voice full of gratitude, I think you, Taylor. I haven't felt so alone in a long time. At you being so tall, young and handsome, I really liked it. I had no intention of hiding the sincerity and gratitude in my eyes. Lips curved upwards, his trademark charming smile spreading across his face. Nora, do you know how beautiful you are? He said, and I'm not just talking about your looks. Being with you is a completely different feeling. Your warmth here, sink it, everything. You make me feel better. I couldn't take my eyes off his words, his touch. Everything was so real and powerful that I wanted to remember that night forever. I needed you, Taylor, I said honestly, and you were here. I couldn't have asked for more. Taylor smiled slightly and ran his fingers along the edge of the sheets. I'm going to come here a lot, Nora, from now on. Whenever you need me, I'll be here, he said, his voice carrying a tone of determination and sincerity. Just to see you, just to give you those moments. At that moment I felt a new door opening in my life. The burdens and loneliness of the past were slowly disappearing behind me. Having Taylor by my side filled me with a deep sense of trust and peace. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and moved closer. His warmth that night was just the beginning for me, the first steps of a new journey. And knowing that I wasn't alone anymore was more precious than anything. I hope you enjoyed my story. It's been a really exciting journey, and I'm so happy to share it with you. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and you'll be the first to know when a new episode is released. Also, your likes and comments mean the world to me. Hearing what you think and how you really motivates me. Your support makes me want to write more. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next story.